Speaking of that, as we head into a midterm year, President Trump predicts the 2026 midterm elections will center around pricing, with the balance of power in Congress on the line. Madeleine Rivera joining us live from Washington with the details. Good morning, Madeleine. Good morning. President Trump's message heading into next year is that they're fixing the inflation they inherited under the Biden administration and that Americans will start to feel their economic policies. The president saying, "I think it's going to be about the success of our country. It'll be about pricing. They gave us high pricing and we're bringing it down. Energy is way down. Gasoline is way down." That's what he said to Politico. The White House is feeling a boost after some positive economic indicators. The U.S. economy grew at a rate of 4.3% in the third quarter of the year, driven mainly by consumer spending, exports, and government spending. Inflation cooled to an annual rate of 2.7% in November, and the average gas price is $2.85 per gallon. The president crediting his tariffs while also highlighting the data, saying on Truth Social, "Tariffs are creating great wealth and unprecedented national security for the USA. Trade deficit has been cut by 60%, totally unheard of. 4.3% GDP and going way up. No inflation. We are respected as a country again." All of this has Republicans feeling bullish that they can gain the upper hand on affordability. Democrats have been on the offensive on the issue, riding a wave of victories at the ballot box this year after placing the cost of living front and center. But a Fox News poll shows 72% rate the economy negatively. 72% of voters. A lot of that negative sentiment is driven by 9 in 10 Democrats and independents giving the economy bad marks. Nearly half of Republicans feel the same. Charlie, Lisa, and Griff, thanks Maddie. Well, certainly, without a doubt, the issue of affordability and pricing is going to be a huge issue in the coming election. And one of the things that Charlie Kirk often talked about was the incredible cost of getting onto that first rung of the ladder, which is buying your first home. The average age of a first-time home buyer in 1981 was 29 years old. Today, it is 40 years old. When you look at a statistic like that, it's a shocking statistic. And the question is, what are politicians going to do about it? How are they going to solve this problem? Obviously, one of the biggest things that affects this is national debt. When you rack up $40 trillion in debt, capital becomes much more expensive. Companies wind up investing in homes, which raises the price of those homes. All kinds of bad things like that. But one of the things that I think is really dangerous is when you have political leaders lecturing young people about being wiser with their money and blaming young people for the cost of houses today, when this is the same generation of leaders who gave us $40 trillion in debt. It makes it really, really difficult for young people. I think the future of politics is figuring out this problem and convincing those young people that they can still get onto the first rung of the American dream. Yeah, and look, to be fair to young people, you can't blame them. If you go back just a couple of years ago, when inflation under President Joe Biden was 9%, you can't blame young people for feeling that life altogether is just unaffordable, not just housing. Everything. But look at what the Trump administration is saying, some of the major milestones that they are starting to turn that tide in the right direction. The 4.3% GDP growth is a big one that blew away expectations. Inflation at 2.7%. Gas prices, by the way, you see there, cheaper than it was a year ago, $2.82 on Friday. Shelter inflation down from over 4% this time last year to 3%. It's fascinating because you do have, if you look state by state, states like California, which has the highest inflation. I'm excited that we have HUD Secretary Scott Turner on today because we've heard so much about the administration soon to lay out their plan to make it affordable for young people to get into that first rung. The numbers are starting to turn in their favor. You hear people like Kevin Hassett and Howard Lutnick saying that things are looking good now, but it's next year that things are really going to go well when they have the tax cuts and more deregulation. Yeah, and every election comes down to that infamous James Carville quote, "It's the economy, stupid." This election cycle, it's affordability stupid, right? So it's the same thing, just framed in a different manner. And you see those numbers, a lot of positive movement for Republicans heading into the midterms. To the issue of home ownership, I will say I'm 40. 40 is still very, very young. But yeah, we want that number to be earlier in life. But people are also getting married later as well. Home ownership is one of those things you tend to do more as a married couple. It sort of signifies the growth of a family. You also have a lot of young people saddled with student loan debt, and that is a big barrier to home ownership as well. We're going to have the HUD secretary coming up here. He also penned an op-ed for Fox News. Another thing he had listed, which is important, is how immigration and illegal aliens have impacted the housing market as well. He writes about how foreign-born migrants accounted for 2/3 of growth in rental demand across the country. Some places, such as California and New York, saw a 100% growth in migrant-fueled rental demand. So that's another question that we'll have for him as well.